Welcome back to Arise Primetime, where we offer perspectives on the news and talking points of the day. I'm Charles Aniegolu. Now, they call themselves the League of Northern Democrats, and they are the latest buzzword or buzz phrase in Nigerian politics, a group of high-ranking northern Nigerians who want to become the new voice for the interests and people of the region, especially as 2027 draws ever closer. They feel that the North has been superseded by other regions in terms of progress and development, and that it's time to accelerate things. A first step, they say, is to bring together disparate groups in the region into one cohesive force under the umbrella of the LND. Its members are prominent and include, among others, the former two-term governor of Kano State, Ibrahim Shekarau, and the former Minister of Education and one-time presidential candidate, Dr. Umar Ardo. And they recently called a political summit of wise and eminent people to work out how to move or even drag the North kicking and screaming into the 21st century. But how do you produce such a massive cultural change in a region that's steeped in centuries of religion and tradition? Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by the convener of the League of Northern Democrats, Dr. Umar Ardo, who is a former Minister of Education and one-time presidential candidate. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you very much, Charles.
And the League of Northern Democrats, I actually like that name. It just flows. It sounds like there was a movie called The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Okay.
But I expect you didn't get the name from that.
No. We took our own from League of Nations.
Well, that's a slightly less plebeian than sort of the movie, the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
I don't know of that movie actually. Right.
But well, it was an interesting movie.
Thank you. Okay. But I want to correct something. I never was a Minister of Education. Okay. No. I was, the highest I've been was a special assistant to the president.
Okay, well, we apologize then. We
but thank you for the promotion.
I was going to say we promoted you.
I hope to be a Minister of Education maybe one day. Thank you.
Well, we promoted you. Well, first of all, tell us about this League of Northern Democrats and what sets it apart from the other prominent, already existing northern groups such as the Northern Elders Forum, the Arewa Consultative Forum, and all the rest of it.
Okay, thank you. The League of Northern Democrats is a group of highly educated and well-placed northern Nigerians, and they come from two groups, two sides. One are those who by themselves have acquired status in society, and the second is in addition of who by themselves have also acquired status in society, they also come as a symbolic group that represent those who fought, worked, and sacrificed themselves for northern Nigeria and by extension for Nigeria. So we went and got all of them, any political, military, civil, whatever families in the North, we brought them together. From the business cycle, you have your, if you get our list, you will see it. Right. I can say that in terms of stature, the League of Northern Democrats is about the most formidable political platform in stature, I said, not maybe in delivering elections, which we hope maybe one day it can do.
So what are you concerned about?
No, okay, and also the difference between us and the Arewa Consultative Forum, Northern Elders Forum, is actually very slight. We intend and we want and we drive to mobilize and unite our people, but in addition, we also have political aspirations. That is, we would want to influence the politics of the North and the politics of the country so as to
well, I suspect that the Northern Elders Forum and the Arewa Consultative Forum want to do the same thing.
No, they call themselves socio-cultural.
Yeah, but
they do try to influence elections. Before we formed this League of Northern Democrats, I went and looked up the objectives aims and objectives of the two groups. And if you really look at it, like Arewa Consultative Forum, it came in June 2000. That's just barely 1 year after the Obasanjo administration. And virtually all its aspirations have not been met. Virtually all. They aspire to unite the country. The country is not as united as it used to be.
Well, they would argue that it's a process.
Well, if it takes you 24 years in a process, this is almost a lifetime.
Yeah, but the fact that you're sitting where you are and knocking them for not achieving what they set out to achieve, isn't that already sowing divisions within the North?
No, not
when
at all.
Your plan is to unite everybody.
No, not at all.
Right.
We met, we discussed with them, and in fact, we are going to have a meeting with them next week,
right,
in order to form a coalition. Now, every organization has its pluses and its minuses. So we looked at the minuses of these organizations, and we said we are going to fill in the blanks.
Well, let's move on from there. What are you concerned about?
Concerned about...
in terms of, from the point of view of the northern region,
yes.
What is your concern?
Our concern is that our society has virtually collapsed. Other than the examples of complete no security, no education, no poverty, endemic poverty. Our people have moved from state of poverty to state of destitution. This is unacceptable. And who created it? The northern elites, and the national elites. So our elites created it, and nobody can resolve it other than the elites themselves. And as a historian, I have seen over history, over time, where when societies get into big trouble and it's drifting, certain group of elite come together and then change the course of history.
Yeah, but
we've seen that in the US, we've seen that in Europe, we've seen that in Africa, we've seen that all over.
But you don't sort of, for example, if you look at, and I'm not in any way suggesting that there should be a revolution in the North, but perhaps a revolution of the mind, not a sort of revolution on the street. But if you look at places where revolutions have taken place, you look at Russia, you look at France, you look at the United States and all those places, you don't expect the people who are the problem. For example, in France, where you had the royalty, in Russia, the czars and all the rest of them, they're not the ones who are going to carry out the revolution. Someone else carries out the revolution and gets rid of them. So I'm interested in knowing who you see as responsible, because if you say it's some people, some of those elite in your group, they've been in leadership positions. Some of them have been ministers, some of them have been governors, possibly even former heads of state. I don't know. They didn't do anything to end poverty, to move the needle on developing the North. That region has had immense political power, both military and civilian, and everyone there is, talking of ways of deepening development, such as, restructuring. Whenever they talk about restructuring, not in the North, actually, in other parts of the country, the North vetoes talk about restructuring. How are you going to get around all that, and how are things likely to be different?
Okay, thank you. You have packed so much.
But I wanted to get that here.
I got you. No, now, there are two types of elites anywhere in the world. There are the good elites and there are the bad elites. Most of the time, bad elites take over. And so when there is a change, the revolution you are talking about, the Bolsheviks in Russia, then the Jacobins, in France, and they are members of the elites themselves.
But some of them were.
All of them. Who is it not, a member of the elite among them? All of them in France, in England, is the elite that creates, this revolution.
Yeah, but it's not the elite that are responsible for them. You didn't have the royalty who were the people who were, you know, being held accountable for what was going wrong in society, being the ones saying, right, we're now going to change things.
No.
Which is pretty much what you're saying in the League of Northern Democrats.
No, that is not at all.
I mean, you've got governors there, ministers.
We have got only one governor.
People who had the chance to effect change.
Yeah, you know, but it's not everybody that has not tried. I worked in the villa for 8 years. I was an advisor in the villa, and I did what I could do in advisory capacity. The files are there. You look at this, whether it has been implemented or not, it's actually another different case. So just because you are a minister, I have seen frustrated ministers because the endemic, you know, problems within the system made good ministers unable, you know, to deliver. So this is, you know, the problem. So for us here, now I give you a little story. There is, I'm sure you know him, Professor Yusuf. I've seen you interview him several times. Professor Usman.
Yeah, I know him.
When we started this thing, I called him. He was in Germany. And I said, look, Prof, you've always been there in silos, shouting here, shouting there. Come, let us come together and then effect the change. He said, no, doctor, look, everybody is bought up. You know, people are. I said, Prof, have you been bought? He said, no. I said, I've also not been bought. Let us look at those that have not been bought and then bring them together and form an organization of a union of those that have not been bought. I said, if we come together in whatever name, we are going to make an effect. And our coming together has made a great effect in the system. It has gingered the ACF,
so did
for example.
Professor Usman join you then?
Yeah, okay. Professor Usman joined. In the inaugural meeting, we were there and we are together. So these are people that we selected. Now,
so
when we were selecting a governor, there are 57 governors, former governors within this dispensation. I think there were 60-something, but some are the life ones, 57 of them. We put all of them on the scale, and we looked, you know, at the antecedents, and we concluded that the best among them that we can put forth and trust and say this is one among us that is of no blemish is no other than, you know, Governor Shekarau. So that was why we brought him. And, you know, we gave him the leadership, and he's leading very well.
But we have to ask, in those circumstances, how influential this group is going to be. In a country like Nigeria, where a lot of the governors, I mean, hold immense power, and those who are in office and those who are, I mean, they're the ones who have the capacity to make a change.
That's what you think. Now, I'm a historian, and in history, we have philosophy of history. We have what is called causal causation, which basically is the relationship between cause and effect. It is in the sciences. No, but here, it refers, you know, it's an idea that one thing cause the, you know, but it directly, you know, produces another event. The first event is the cause, and what it produces, you know, is the effect.
It's a dialectical process.
Yes, yeah. It goes like this, it goes like this. So if we are able, you know, to understand and master that, you can always, at all times, cause an event that will give a ripple effect and effect until it gets to a predictable and identifiable.
Okay, let me ask you this. Is this aimed, I mean, is this group focused on winning political power? Because, I mean, one very clear way that you could effect, I mean, dramatic, considerable change is through political power. Is that what you're focused upon?
Certainly.
That's your main focus?
That is our because you cannot effect any change without having the authority to effect the change.
But how does that fit into the rest of Nigeria? Because, for example, 2027 is approaching. there is the sense that the South still needs another 4 years. I mean, how does that fit into the thinking of this League of Northern Democrats in terms of what you're intending to do? Are you planning to support a Northern candidate, challenge the sort of the
I don't think we have. I don't think we have reached that point yet. Our objective is to organize ourselves to be a region of first influence in the politics of the country. Then we will determine whether we go north, whether we go south. But we will be.
But it will be driven by the interests of the north.
Yes, driven by the interests of the north within the Nigerian state.
Right. Okay. So, if, for instance, I mean, you said you're not quite clear yet on what the politics is going to be in 2027.
No, not
or what direction you're going to take.
No, not that we are not. We said we are not
at that point.
We are not at that point yet.
Okay. But what point are you at? Because one would assume that, given that you've got the interests of the North at heart, and you've been irked by the developmental challenges that the North has faced, that you would be thinking of saying, right, okay, as you said, it's a dialectical process. I mean, you're saying first step, second step, third step. I mean, do you have any strategies, for example, about how to end things like banditry and the insurgency, criminality in the North? Do you have a strategy about how to make the people more productive, or is it all about gaining political power? I'm wondering how you intend to methodically and systematically deliver prosperity to the North.
Okay, first things first. Our focus is dual, actually. Whatever we do in 2018, we formed what we call Northern Elders and Stakeholders Assembly. It was convened by 4 critical Northerners. Then Tanko Akasai was the chairman, and I was the secretary. We set up various technical committees for about 5 or 6, and they went to work. They brought back beautiful reports. You look at the reports, you know that if these are implemented systematically, they will resolve the problems. But where would we take it? Nowhere. In June, I think 2021 or so, the former President Obasanjo convened what he called Committee for the Goodness of Nigeria. He brought in former presidents, everybody was there, and they set up a technical committee led by former Attorney General Kanu Agabi, of which I was an advisor, and we went into it, produced the most marvelous, report. Where did it go? So unless you have the regime that is willing to implement all the good plans that you have, it's
I understand that.
So our objective first is to see that we get a regime that is willing. Yeah. We will, in the meantime, all you need to do is just to go to the shelves. All these reports are there on how to stop. When I was, I think it was in November 1999, I organized, along with the Institute of International Affairs, in Lagos, we organized cross-border crime and something conference in the Northeast Zone. Because we know, I am a historian, we call the belt from Senegal, to Bagarimi, that this is a conflict zone. This is a conflict belt from the time of Sundiata. And most of the conflict is on religion.
Right. I was going to come to that because, I mean, we're running out of time and I want to keep this fairly sort of brief. I mean, what I was trying to get at is how you're going to, because you need to impress people in the North and command their confidence that you're the kind of people who can be trusted to move into the higher sphere of political sort of engineering, if you like. And in order to achieve that, they want to see what we call the quick wins the small sort of low-hanging fruit, the ones that you can deal with. I mean, you've got somebody like Professor Usman Yusuf, for example, who was negotiated with, you know, hostage takers and all kinds of things, has immense experience in that direction. And I simply wanted to know whether or not you were going to start with those low-hanging fruits. You mentioned religion. What about things like religion and traditions, which are well-respected institutions in the North, but which sometimes, perhaps oftentimes, get in the way of modernization and development? How are you going to get past that? Because it would be up to you, because you're from that region and you're respected in that region, to convince the people that, hey, we're not destroying what we are, we're simply taking all that along and moving into the 21st century.
There is a saying in Hausa, maybe I put it, that a drowning man, you know, clutches to a sword. Now, our situation now is in a desperate situation. Any group that comes up with very clear, you know, message that is resounding to the people tend to follow, to listen and follow. Because what they have on the ground is bad. So we started this at 57 of us. Now we have over 600. Virtually all of them have called or registered by themselves, you know, on the website and so on, because people are tired the way things are drifting. We are not opposed to government. We wrote, when we came, we wrote to the president a letter explaining to him what we are going to do and how government can help, and so that we work together. We wrote to the vice president, we wrote to the national security advisor, all to set things clear. We are not anti-government, but we are concerned with the pathetic situation of our people.
As you should.
As we should.
Yeah. I want to thank you very much indeed. I mean, please come back and talk to us again, because you're a very interesting person. I know we said you were a former Minister of Education. You're not. You were a special advisor.
Yeah.
But I think you have the capacity to be the Minister of Education. Just
well, if I can advise the president, the distinction between me and him is just tiny.
Yeah, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Charles. I appreciate it.
Dr. Umar Ardo is the convener of the League of Northern Democrats, and he is a one-time presidential candidate. That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again next week. From me and the entire team here in Abuja and Akure in Ondo State, bye-bye, and thank you for watching.